Our modern cities run on a secret inherited from the ancient world, the invisible network of pipes bringing you a glass of water and the drains carrying it away are not products of our time. They are the legacy of engineers who lived thousands of years ago. By the end of this, you will understand how 22 forgotten water systems from antiquity still shape the very foundations of urban life today. How did a desert empire create a reliable water supply without a single pump? What forgotten technology allowed a palace to have running water long before the Common Era? What is the one ancient water principle that could help solve modern water crises? The story of urban water begins not with pipes, but with a paradox. Civilization first flourished where water was both a giver of life and a bringer of chaos. In the rich soils between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the very first cities faced an annual reckoning. Spring floods could erase fields and homes in a matter of days, only to be followed by months of scorching drought. Survival demanded more than just hoping for the best. It required a deliberate, collective effort to tame the wild rhythms of nature. This was the dawn of hydraulic civilization, a term that simply means a society built around the management of water. The ability to dig canals for irrigation turned unpredictable floodplains into breadbaskets, allowing populations to grow and specialize. For the first time, not everyone had to farm. This surplus of food created the space for artisans, priests, and rulers to emerge, laying the foundation for everything we recognize as a city. But controlling water for agriculture was only the first step. The next, far greater challenge was bringing that controlled water directly into the urban heart, creating the ingenious systems that would echo through the ages. Beneath the sun-scorched plains of ancient Persia, a quiet revolution in water management was taking place, one that required no pumps, no fuel, and made the desert bloom. The solution was the Qanat, a masterpiece of underground engineering that feels almost like magic. Imagine a gently sloping tunnel, carved by hand through rock and soil, beginning deep within a mountain aquifer. This tunnel travels for miles, sometimes for dozens of miles, descending with a perfectly calculated slope, so slowly that the water within it flows effortlessly, pulled only by the persistent tug of gravity. At regular intervals, vertical shafts plunge from the desert surface down to the tunnel, serving both as entry points for the original diggers and as vents for air. From above, these shafts look like a line of strange, circular wells marching across the landscape, a dotted line pointing from the water source to its destination. The genius of this design was its profound simplicity. By running the water underground, the Qanat completely prevented evaporation in the brutal desert heat, a problem that would cripple an open canal. It also protected the water from contamination and could deliver a remarkably steady, reliable flow year-round, turning barren land into fertile oases. This single innovation allowed settlements and agriculture to flourish in some of the most arid places on Earth, effectively creating civilization where none should logically exist. The principle is so sound, so fundamentally intelligent, that it has never been improved upon. Today, the same concept of gravity-fed underground conduits directly informs modern groundwater management and rural water supply projects in arid regions from Afghanistan to South America. It is a 3,000-year-old answer to a problem we are still solving. And as these hidden rivers flowed, another ancient people were mastering a different kind of water magic, not beneath the ground, but high above it, channeling the very rain from the sky. While the Qanat moved water invisibly through the earth, another civilization chose a path of breathtaking audacity. carving its waterways across the skyline. The Romans did not hide their mastery of water. They proclaimed it in stone and arch, building arteries for an empire. Those iconic arched structures we see today were merely the elevated highlights of a vast, sophisticated network. The true genius was in the relentless, invisible slope. From a mountain spring dozens of miles away, Roman engineers plotted a course with a gradient so precise, so gentle, that water would flow at a perfect pace, neither stagnating nor eroding the channel walls. This gravitational gradient, often dropping only a few inches every 100 feet, was the silent engine that powered the entire system. It allowed a single aqueduct to deliver millions of gallons of fresh water to a city every single day, fueling not just survival but a culture of public luxury. But the journey did not end at the city gates. Before the water even entered the metropolis, it might first pass through massive sedimentation tanks. Here, the water was allowed to slow and rest, letting grit and sediment settle out, a simple yet brilliant first step in purification. Then came the distribution casella, the water towers of the ancient world. These were pivotal junction boxes where the main aqueduct line fed into multiple smaller pipes. From the casella, lead or ceramic pipes carried water in different directions, prioritizing public fountains and baths for the people, then to the homes of the wealthy, and finally, if any remained, for industrial uses and flushing the city's sewers. This entire process, from a clean mountain source to a meticulously graded conveyance channel to a tiered distribution network, established a template for municipal water supply that is, in its core principles, completely unchanged today. Our modern systems still rely on the same foundational trilogy, a testament to a design so robust it has flowed uninterrupted for 2 millennia. Yet, for all the grandeur of Roman aqueducts, there existed an entirely different philosophy of water, one that reached not upward but plunged dramatically into the earth. In the arid landscapes of the Indian subcontinent, communities did not just collect water, they built palaces for it. These were the stepwells known as baolis, and they were far more than simple reservoirs. They were inverted temples, monuments to the vital importance of groundwater. Imagine descending a staggering 10 stories down into the ground, not into a dark pit, but into a breathtaking, open-air cavern of carved stone. Intricate staircases cascade downward, flanked by hundreds of precisely aligned columns and ornate pavilions that create a mesmerizing geometric symmetry. The deeper you go, the cooler and more serene the air becomes, a stark contrast to the baking heat at the surface. The steps themselves were the key to their resilience. As the water table dropped during brutal dry seasons, people could simply walk further down the staircase to reach it, ensuring a reliable water supply long after surface ponds had vanished. But the stepwell's purpose was beautifully dual. It was a vital piece of infrastructure and the heart of the community. The numerous landings and shaded galleries became natural gathering places. Travelers rested here, merchants exchanged news, and local women socialized while filling their water pots. It was a space where the practical need for water seamlessly blended with the human need for connection and respite. This ancient integration is precisely why modern urban planners are looking back at the stepwell with renewed awe. In an era of water scarcity and often isolating city design, the baoli presents a powerful alternative, a model for a multi-functional public space. It asks a profound question: can our own water infrastructure be more than just hidden pipes and treatment plants? Can it also be a beautiful, central place that cools our cities, gathers our communities, and reminds us of the precious resource we all share? As these structures demonstrate, managing water is about managing human life itself, a truth understood just as clearly in the floating gardens of a lost American empire. While the Romans built their aqueducts and India its stepwells, a far older mystery was being buried under volcanic ash on the island of Crete. Deep within the labyrinthine palace of Knossos, the Minoans engineered a luxury that seems to defy its own time, running water on demand. Their secret was not in grand stone channels, but in humble, beautifully crafted terracotta pipes. Each section was a tapered, conical tube, designed to fit snugly into the next, with sealed joints that could withstand an astonishing force, the pressure of moving water being pushed uphill. This was a monumental leap in thought. While others relied on gravity to let water flow down, the Minoans were actively pushing it up, directing it to upper floors of their sprawling palace complex. Imagine the awe of a visitor seeing water emerge from a spout on a second-story balcony, a feat that must have seemed like pure magic. This was one of humanity's first forays into pressurized plumbing, a core principle that allows every modern skyscraper to function. Without that same fundamental understanding of contained water pressure, the faucets in a 20th floor apartment would simply not work. The Minoan system, lost for centuries after the Thera eruption, represents a spark of advanced engineering that would not be rekindled on such a scale for over 1,000 years. It proves that the ambition to command water, to make it serve our convenience, is an ancient dream. And as one civilization harnessed pressure, another was learning to dance with pure volume, constructing a city that floated upon the very water it needed to survive. But that water flowing into Roman homes and fountains had to go somewhere. In the heart of the burgeoning city, the solution was as monumental as the aqueducts themselves, the Cloaca Maxima, or the greatest sewer. What began as a simple, open-air ditch dug to drain the marshy valleys between Rome's famous hills grew into the backbone of urban sanitation. Over centuries, this humble canal was enclosed with a massive stone vault, transforming it into a subterranean river of waste, wide enough for a small boat to travel through. Its entire operation was a masterpiece of passive engineering, relying solely on gravity to carry wastewater from the city's public latrines, baths, and even some private residences down into the Tiber River. This relentless downhill flow was the system's only engine, flushing the city's refuse away from its densely packed populace. For the first time on such a scale, a city was actively and systematically managing its own filth, a direct and necessary counterpart to the clean water arriving via the aqueducts. The fundamental principle established here, that of a centralized, gravity-fed network to remove waste from the urban core, is the exact same blueprint our modern cities follow today. Every time you flush a toilet, you are participating in a system whose core logic was cemented 2,000 years ago beneath the streets of Rome. It was a profound acknowledgement that a healthy city requires not just a supply of clean water, but a reliable exit for the dirty. Far from the Mediterranean world, another empire was mastering the water cycle on a scale that boggles the mind. The Khmer capital of Angkor was not merely a city of temples, but a city of water, an intricate machine engineered to harness the rhythm of the monsoon. Each year, torrential rains would threaten to drown the landscape, while the long dry season promised crippling drought. The Khmers refused to submit to this cycle, instead building a sprawling network of colossal reservoirs called barrays and hundreds of miles of canals that acted like the veins and arteries of a living organism. These massive earthworks captured the destructive monsoon deluge, storing it safely away. Then, during the dry months, this stored water was carefully released through the canals to irrigate vast rice paddies, supporting intensive agriculture that fed a population likely exceeding 1 million people. This was not just water control, it was hydrological symphony. The system was designed holistically, considering the entire watershed from forested hills to the floodplain. It managed water for every purpose, from agriculture and transportation to supporting the spiritual symbolism of their temple moats. This ancient, integrated approach is a direct mirror of a modern principle we now call integrated water resource management. Today, water planners strive for this same balance, trying to meet human water needs while protecting the health of the surrounding environment. The genius of Angkor lies in its powerful, ancient demonstration that you cannot solve one water problem in isolation. You must see the whole picture from the flood to the drought and build a system that respects both. It is a lesson carved not just in stone, but across the very landscape of Cambodia, a timeless reminder that true resilience comes from working with nature's rhythms, not against them. High above the bustling streets of Constantinople, a city besieged by enemies and parched by drought, lay a secret world of inverted cathedrals. The Basilica Cistern was not merely a tank, it was a submerged palace, a forest of 336 marble columns standing in silent, permanent vigil over a dark, placid sea. This was the city's lifeblood, a reservoir so vast it could hold 80,000 cubic meters of water, enough to sustain hundreds of thousands of people for months. Its water came from two sources, the distant aqueducts that snaked across the countryside, and the rain that fell directly upon the city's countless roofs and courtyards, all channeled into this subterranean fortress. The true genius of Constantinople was not just in collecting water, but in hoarding it on an unimaginable scale. In an era of unreliable supply and constant military threat, these cisterns provided the ultimate security, a buffer against both the siege engine and the rainless sky. They turned the city into a self-sufficient fortress, immune to an enemy's attempt to cut its aqueducts and unshaken by the fickleness of the seasons. This ancient strategy of massive, centralized storage is a direct ancestor of the water towers that crown our modern towns and the sprawling reservoirs that hydrate our contemporary metropolises. We still use these vast containers for the exact same reason the Byzantines did, to create a resilient buffer. They protect us from supply interruptions, whether from a broken main or a prolonged drought, and they manage the daily peaks in demand when everyone showers in the morning or waters their lawn at dusk. The water you use at this very moment may have been held in such a reserve, a quiet echo of the Byzantine principle that true urban power lies not just in the flow of water, but in the wisdom of its reserve. And as one empire mastered the art of storage, another was perfecting the science of delivery, with a network of pipes so advanced it would not be rivaled for over 1,000 years. Carved directly into the rose-red cliffs of a desert canyon, the city of Petra faced a paradox of its own. It was a place of immense wealth and architectural wonder, built in one of the most water-scarce environments on Earth. The Nabataeans did not have a mighty river to divert or a high mountain aquifer to tap with qanats. Their survival depended on something far more fleeting and unpredictable, the brief, violent rainstorms that would occasionally sweep across the arid landscape. Instead of praying for rain, they engineered a way to command it, to seize every single drop before the desert could reclaim it. Their entire city became a sophisticated catchment surface. They carved channels directly into the cliff faces, guiding runoff from vast areas into a network of underground cisterns and massive public pools. They built diversion dams in narrow canyons called wadis, designed not to hold back a permanent river, but to capture the sudden, destructive flash floods that followed a storm, taming the torrent and storing its life-giving water. Every courtyard, every rooftop, every natural rock surface was part of this calculated system, all designed to capture, channel, and conserve. This was rainwater harvesting at its most ambitious, turning a city of stone into a sponge. The principle is stunningly simple yet profound. In a desert, water is too precious to waste on the ground. This ancient expertise in squeezing utility from minimal rainfall is exactly what informs modern sustainable design. Today, in arid cities from the American Southwest to the Middle East, architects and planners are reviving these very techniques, building homes with rooftop collection systems and landscaping designed to channel rainfall into the soil. The Nabataeans understood that in a dry world, resilience is not about finding more water, but about wasting less. Their rock-carved city stands as a powerful monument to that idea, proving that even the most inhospitable land can flourish with ingenuity. And as one desert civilization mastered the art of collection, another was perfecting the science of filtration, developing a way to turn murky water into a clean, safe drink. A structure can be so perfectly conceived that it needs no glue to hold it together for 2,000 years. The Aqueduct of Segovia stands in Spain not as a ruin, but as a functioning monument, its towering double arcade of precisely cut granite blocks locked in place by nothing more than their own weight and perfect balance. For nearly 2 millennia, this Roman marvel has defied time, weather, and even gravity itself, carrying water long after the empire that built it faded into history. The secret was not in a magical material, but in an unwavering commitment to precision. Each granite block was cut and shaped to such an exacting standard that the joints between them are virtually seamless, creating a structure where the force of the water above and the ground below is channeled perfectly through the stone. This is engineering as a high art form, a testament to the power of meticulous craftsmanship. In our modern world, where so much is built for planned obsolescence and quick replacement, the aqueduct's silent endurance asks a difficult question of us. What does it mean to build for the future, not just for the present? Its legacy screams a principle modern civil engineers are desperately trying to relearn, that the most sustainable and ultimately cheapest infrastructure is that which is built to last for centuries. The true cost of a bridge or a water main is not just its initial price tag, but the cost of maintaining and replacing it every few decades. The Romans, with their eye on eternity, understood this implicitly. They built with a permanence we have largely forgotten, gifting future generations not with problems to solve, but with solutions that still stand. This stone giant is more than a relic. It is a working blueprint for resilience, a reminder that true strength lies not in constant repair, but in getting the design so perfectly right the first time that it simply endures. This seamless integration of water, power, and agriculture finds one of its most spectacular expressions in the heart of ancient Persia. The Shushta historical hydraulic system was not merely a collection of water mills, it was a sprawling, interconnected machine carved directly into the living rock. During the Sassanid era, engineers performed a breathtaking feat of redirection, taming the powerful Kharon River, Iran's most water-rich artery. They constructed a massive diversion dam, channeling its flow into a man-made canal. This newly created waterway then plunged into a complex of underground tunnels, where the force of the falling water was harnessed to turn the wheels of dozens of mills, grinding grain for the entire region. But the system's genius did not end with energy production. After powering the mills, the same water was not wasted. It was carefully released to cascade down a dramatic cliff face in a series of roaring waterfalls, aerating the water and cooling the air before finally being channeled out to irrigate a vast, fertile plain known as the Minoan. This oasis supported immense palm groves and orchards, effectively turning the entire area into a green paradise. Here, in one coordinated masterpiece, was a complete water cycle. A single river provided the kinetic energy for industry, the visual and environmental spectacle of a waterfall, and the lifeblood for agriculture, all before returning to its natural course. This holistic vision, where one intervention serviced multiple needs, is the direct philosophical ancestor of our modern multi-purpose dams. Projects like the Hoover Dam are built on this very same principle, designed to generate hydroelectric power for cities, store water for irrigation, and provide a reliable supply for municipalities, all from one structure. The ancient engineers of Shushta understood that water's greatest value is realized not in a single use, but in a cascading sequence of purpose. They built a system that asked not what one could take from the river, but what the river could continuously give. The Sahara presents a paradox of its own, a sea of sand hiding oceans of ancient water beneath its surface. Here, another subterranean river was born, not from a mountain spring, but from prehistoric aquifers, water trapped in the rock for thousands of years. This was the Fagara, North Africa's answer to the Qanat, a system developed entirely independently to pull life from the deep desert. Skilled diggers would tunnel backwards from their oasis, carving a gently sloping gallery for miles until it tapped into this fossil groundwater. The result was a self-regulating wellspring, its flow determined by the water table itself, preventing overuse and ensuring a surprisingly sustainable yield. But the true genius of the Fagara was not just in its engineering, it was in its governance. Maintaining these fragile tunnels against constant collapse was a relentless, dangerous task. This created a powerful need for cooperation. The communities that relied on the Fagara developed intricate, formalized protocols for its upkeep and, most crucially, for the fair distribution of its water. Time shares were meticulously measured, often with ancient water clocks, ensuring every family and every field received its allotted turn. This was not a free-for-all. It was a carefully balanced system of communal stewardship, where the survival of all depended on the responsible participation of each individual. In a world now facing growing conflicts over shared groundwater that crosses national borders, the Fagara offers a timeless lesson. It proves that the most advanced technology is useless without the social systems to manage it fairly. The real challenge for our modern era may not be finding more water, but rediscovering that ancient wisdom of shared responsibility, of seeing a vital resource not as something to be owned, but as a trust to be managed together for the good of the entire community. High in the thin air of the Andes, the Incas faced a vertical world where flat land was a fantasy. Their solution was to rebuild the mountains themselves. They carved the steep slopes into a breathtaking staircase of agricultural terraces, each one a perfectly level field held in place by masterful stone walls. But these were far more than just retaining walls. They were the foundation of an entire hydrological system. Interconnected by a web of stone-lined canals, these terraces captured the precious meltwater from glaciers high above. Gravity then took over, pulling the water down from one terrace to the next in a controlled, gentle cascade. This slow, staged journey did more than just irrigate crops. It prevented the violent erosion that would have otherwise scarred the mountainside during a downpour. Each terrace acted as a speed bump for water, forcing it to slow, to soak into the soil, and to deposit any sediment it was carrying, effectively fertilizing the field. This created a self-sustaining cycle of nourishment and stability, turning impossible inclines into fertile gardens that could feed a vast empire. The core principle here, shaping the land to work with gravity and water flow rather than against it, is now a cornerstone of modern sustainable farming. We call it contour plowing, where farmers till their fields along the natural curves of the land, not in straight lines up and down a hill, to achieve that same erosion control. Even in our cities, the design of hillside drainage and stormwater management systems owes a debt to this ancient, mountain sculpting wisdom. It is a powerful reminder that sometimes the most advanced solution is not to fight the landscape, but to listen to it and follow its natural lines. While the Incas reshaped mountains, another civilization was mastering the rhythm of a single, life-giving river. The ancient Egyptians lived and died by the Nile's annual flood, but that fertile water had to be coaxed onto the fields that lay just beyond its reach. Their solution was elegant in its simplicity, a tool that turned back-breaking labor into manageable work. The shaduf was nothing more than a long pole, balanced on a crossbeam like a seesaw, with a clay pot tied to one end and a heavy counterweight of mud or stone on the other. A farmer would pull the rope to dunk the pot into the river, then let the counterweight do the heavy lifting, raising the full bucket high into the air with minimal effort. With a simple swing, he could then pivot the entire apparatus to pour the water into an irrigation ditch serving a field that stood several feet above the riverbank. This was a monumental leap. For the first time, human muscle was amplified by a fundamental principle of physics, the lever. One person with a shaduf could irrigate far more land than several people hauling buckets by hand, dramatically increasing agricultural productivity and freeing up labor for other tasks. It was a form of early mechanization that supercharged the farming process. The core principle at work here is so universal that its legacy is everywhere around us. The basic action of a counterweighted lever is the same mechanic you use when you operate a modern well pump, or even when a construction crane lifts a massive load. It is the soul of countless machines that move heavy things with minimal force. The shaduf represents a pivotal moment in our relationship with technology, the realization that we could build tools that worked with the unbreakable laws of nature, not against them. This simple device helped feed a civilization for millennia, proving that the most enduring innovations are often not the most complex, but the most perfectly adapted to their purpose. Far to the east, the Sri Lankan city of Anuradhapura achieved a similar feat of water security, not by diverting rivers, but by sculpting the very landscape into a chain of inland seas. Its lifeblood was a sprawling network of artificial reservoirs known locally as tanks, vast basins of earth and stone that captured the bounty of the seasonal monsoons. These were not isolated pools, but a meticulously planned hydraulic mosaic. Canals linked these reservoirs together, creating a flexible grid that could transfer water from one basin to another, balancing supply across the entire system. Over more than 1,000 years, successive generations of engineers expanded and refined this network, each new tank and canal adding to the resilience of the whole. This patient, cumulative effort supported a population that may have exceeded 100,000 people, making Anuradhapura one of the grandest and most populous cities of the ancient world in its prime. The underlying strategy was one of mass storage, a deliberate hoarding of surface water on a landscape-altering scale. This ancient approach is the direct philosophical and technical ancestor of every major dam and reservoir project in our modern world. When you see the vast human-made lake behind a structure like the Hoover Dam, you are looking at the same principle that sustained Anuradhapura, just executed with contemporary materials. These modern reservoirs provide that same critical buffer against drought, store water for agriculture on an imperial scale, and generate the power that lights our cities. The tanks of Sri Lanka stand as a powerful testament to a simple, enduring truth, that a civilization's longevity is often directly tied to its ability to capture the rain when it falls and save it for the long, dry season ahead. Yet for all the grandeur of Rome's aqueducts, the final delivery of water was a matter of precise, quiet control. Inside the city, the water flowed through a network of standardized lead pipes, a material chosen for its malleability and durability. We now know the tragic health consequences of this choice, but the innovation itself was revolutionary. For the first time, water conduits could be manufactured to consistent sizes and shapes, creating a predictable and reliable urban grid. The true mastery, however, lay in the regulation. Roman engineers installed bronze stopcocks, the ancient ancestors of our modern valves, which could be turned to shut off water flow to specific sections of the city for maintenance or in case of a pipe burst. They even employed clever flow restrictors, calibrated orifices that would limit the amount of water reaching a private residence, ensuring that the public fountains and baths, the heart of Roman social life, always received their priority supply. This was the birth of the managed, pressurized distribution network. It transformed water from a public river into a private utility, a resource that could be metered, directed, and controlled with surgical precision. This fundamental idea that a city's water supply must be actively managed and regulated at the point of delivery is the direct precursor to the complex system of valves, meters, and pressure regulators that hums unseen beneath every modern street. Your own home's water pressure is managed by the same core principle the Romans established, a testament to an engineering concept so powerful it has flowed through the centuries, even as the toxic pipes that first carried it were rightfully left behind. The river itself became the engine. Along the banks of the Orontes in ancient Syria, the groaning song of the Norias of Homer filled the air. These were not simple wheels, but monumental wooden giants, some towering over 60 feet high. Their design was a symphony of simple physics. As the river's current pushed against submerged paddles on the bottom of the wheel, the entire structure would begin to turn with a slow, majestic creak. Fixed to the immense rim were a series of wooden boxes. With each rotation, these boxes would dip into the river, scoop up a load of water, and then carry it to the very apex of the wheel's rotation. There, at the highest point, the box would tip, pouring its contents into a stone aqueduct that waited high above the riverbank. From this elevated channel, the water would then flow by gravity to irrigate fields that lay far beyond the reach of the river's natural level. This was a perpetual motion machine powered entirely by nature, a self-operating pump that required no fuel and no manual labor, just the relentless flow of the river. The principle is a direct ancestor of the massive hydraulic turbines that spin inside our modern hydroelectric dams. In both cases, the kinetic energy of moving water is captured and converted into useful work. But the legacy of the Noria goes even further. The concept of using energy to lift water to a height, storing potential energy for later use, is the foundational idea behind pumped storage hydroelectricity, a key technology for balancing modern power grids. These ancient wooden wheels were not just irrigation tools, they were early prototypes of the complex energy systems that power our world today, proving that the most powerful solutions often come from working in harmony with a river's own immutable strength. Deep within the rainforests of Guatemala, the Grand Maya city of Tikal faced a hidden vulnerability. This was a metropolis of towering temples and a bustling population, yet it sat upon a porous limestone shelf, a landscape that swallowed rainwater whole. With no rivers or lakes to draw from, their very survival hinged on capturing the sky itself. Their solution was a network of massive, plaster-lined reservoirs carved directly into the bedrock and sealed to hold the precious monsoon rains. But collecting the water was only half the battle. In the stagnant heat of the jungle, a stored reservoir could quickly become a breeding ground for algae and disease. The Maya engineers, however, were masters of biomimicry, turning to the forest itself for a solution. They designed their reservoirs with a sophisticated understanding of natural purification. Water would first pass through sand filters, a simple physical barrier that trapped sediment and larger impurities. More remarkably, they cultivated specific aquatic plants within the reservoirs themselves. These plants acted as living filters, their roots absorbing harmful nutrients and contaminants while releasing oxygen, thereby maintaining a balanced, cleaner water supply. This was not just storage, it was an integrated, self-cleaning ecosystem. The Maya were effectively engineering wetlands to purify their urban water supply. This ancient, holistic approach directly prefigures one of the most important modern movements in water management, known as sustainable urban drainage systems, or SUDs. Today, instead of channeling every drop of stormwater through pipes directly into rivers, modern planners create rain gardens and bioswales, shallow depressions filled with native plants and gravel. These features mimic the Maya reservoirs by slowing down runoff, allowing it to soak into the ground, and using the natural filtering power of soil and plant roots to clean the water before it recharges aquifers or enters waterways. The Maya of Tikal understood a truth we are only now fully appreciating, that the most resilient and pure water systems are those that work with nature's own cycles, not against them. This same spirit of shared stewardship flowed into medieval Spain with a revolutionary clarity. In the sun-drenched landscapes of Al-Andalus, Islamic engineers introduced more than just canals, they embedded a profound sense of water justice. The acequias were not merely ditches for irrigation, they were the liquid arteries of a community, and their management was a sacred, democratic trust. A network of these canals would branch from a single river, delivering life to every farm and garden in the region. But the true genius was not in the engineering of the channels themselves, but in the social system that governed every drop. The distribution was managed by a community-elected official known as the zanjero, the ditch rider. This was not a role for a distant king or a wealthy landowner. It was a position of local responsibility, filled by someone who understood the land and the people who worked it. The zanjero enforced a precise, time-shared system of water rights. A farmer's access to the flow was not based on power or wealth, but on a fixed schedule, measured by the careful tracking of the sun or with ancient water clocks. Your turn for the water might be from sunrise until midday on a Tuesday, a right so clearly defined and respected that it became as valuable as the land itself. This created a society where every member, from the largest landholder to the smallest subsistence farmer, had a guaranteed and equitable share of the collective resource. The system recognized that water was the common property of all, and its management required the consent and participation of the entire community. This democratic model of allocation, born over 1,000 years ago, is the direct philosophical ancestor of the water user associations and irrigation districts found across the American West and in many arid parts of the world today. These modern cooperatives operate on that very same principle, that those who depend on the water should have a direct voice in its management, ensuring a fair and sustainable distribution for everyone. The legacy of the acequias is a powerful reminder that the most resilient water systems are those built not just on stone and soil, but on a foundation of fairness and shared responsibility. But for an empire to be truly secure, it must first be well fed. In the 3rd century before the Common Era, the nascent Qin dynasty in China faced a monumental challenge. The Guangdong Plain, the very heart of their territory, was a semi-arid region whose parched soils could not reliably support the vast armies and growing population needed for imperial ambition. The solution was not a weapon but a waterway conceived on a staggering scale. The Zhenguo Canal was a man-made river, a trench 30 miles long and 150 feet wide, carved across the landscape to divert the waters of the Jing River onto the thirsty plains. The sheer volume of earth moved was immense, a testament to state power mobilizing tens of thousands of laborers. This was not a simple irrigation ditch, it was a deliberate act of environmental transformation. The canal's waters carried a secret ingredient, a thick, mineral-rich silt. As this water spread across the fields, it deposited a fresh layer of fertile sediment with every flood, essentially fertilizing the land automatically and continuously. Within a few years, the once marginal region was reborn as the richest agricultural heartland in all of China, earning the name Land of Abundance. This single project turbocharged the Qin economy, providing the unstoppable food surplus that fueled the armies which would ultimately unify China for the first time. The Zhenguo Canal established a powerful model, the idea that large-scale, state-sponsored water infrastructure is not a luxury, but a fundamental tool for national economic development and security. This ancient principle is the direct blueprint for every modern mega-project, from the massive irrigation networks that feed nations to the colossal dams that power entire industrial regions. It proves that the most ambitious political goals often depend on the most fundamental human need, the mastery of water to feed a people. The desert sun could blaze with enough ferocity to melt stone, yet within these strange, domed structures, winter endured all year long. These were the yakchuls of ancient Persia, towering beehives of clay and sand that functioned as vast, zero-energy refrigerators. Their design was a masterclass in thermal dynamics, built from a special mortar called sarouj, a mixture of sand, clay, egg whites, lime, and goat hair that was remarkably resistant to heat transfer. The dome itself was only part of the system. At its base, underground water channels, often fed by a qanat, would fill shallow, shaded pools. As the cold desert night arrived, this standing water would radiate its heat away into the clear sky and begin to freeze. Key to this process were the wind catchers, tall, chimney-like towers that would capture any prevailing breeze and funnel it down into the base of the structure, accelerating the evaporation and cooling process to create slabs of ice by morning. Workers would then harvest this ice, pack it deep into the yakchul's massive, insulated underground chamber and stack it high where it would remain frozen for months, even through the most intense summer heat. It was a complete, closed-loop system of passive cooling, creating a valuable commodity from nothing but clever design and the natural environment. This ancient principle of using thermal mass and evaporative cooling is now at the forefront of modern sustainable architecture. Contemporary builders are revisiting these ideas, constructing homes with thick, rammed earth walls that absorb daytime heat and release it at night, and designing ventilation systems that mimic the wind catcher's function to cool buildings without a single watt of electricity. The yakchul stands as a powerful testament to a different kind of innovation, one that solves a modern problem with an ancient, elegant solution, proving that comfort does not always require a power grid. The concept of a clean city begins not with fresh water, but with the swift removal of the dirty. In the sprawling, baked brick metropolis of Mohenjo-Daro, a principle was being carved into the very streets over 4,000 years ago. This was not a city that grew haphazardly. It was planned with a foresight that feels almost modern. Along the edges of its orderly, grid-like streets ran a network of covered drains, meticulously constructed from precisely shaped bricks and sealed with lime mortar. These were not open sewers, but subterranean channels designed to carry wastewater away from the public space. The system's sophistication is staggering. Individual homes had their own bathrooms and drainage outlets that connected directly to these street-side channels, which then fed into larger, centralized sewers. At regular intervals, the builders installed something we would instantly recognize today: simple manholes. These access points allowed for the regular maintenance and cleaning of the system, preventing the catastrophic blockages that could cripple urban life. This was a civilization that, from its very inception, understood that public health was inseparable from public works. They built a municipal infrastructure where the management of waste was not an afterthought, but a foundational pillar of urban design. That core idea that a city must be engineered to systematically and hygienically remove its own wastewater is the absolute bedrock of every modern public health code. The elaborate sewer systems beneath London, Paris, and New York are the direct, scaled-up descendants of those first covered drains in the Indus Valley. We take it for granted that our streets are not fouled by the waste from our homes, but that expectation itself is a 4,000-year-old gift. It establishes a standard that still defines a functioning city from a failing one, proving that the height of civilization is often measured by what it chooses to hide underground. The true power of Rome's water network revealed itself not in the private villas of the elite, but in the steamy, echoing halls of the public baths. These vast complexes, the thermae, were far more than places to get clean. They were the social and recreational heart of the city, open to citizens across the social spectrum for a minimal fee, or sometimes for free. To keep these sprawling facilities running required a staggering volume of water, a continuous flow that was prioritized above almost all other uses. The baths featured a circuit of rooms with progressively warmer pools, from the cold frigidarium to the hot coldarium, all fed by a constant stream of fresh water flowing in from the aqueducts, while separate drains carried the used water away. This was water engineered for public wellness on an industrial scale, a direct and deliberate use of civic infrastructure to promote the health and cohesion of the populace. Alongside the baths, the city was punctuated by magnificent public fountains, the nymphea. These were not mere decorations, but vital distribution points where anyone, from the wealthiest merchant to the poorest slave, could collect fresh, clean drinking water. This guaranteed a fundamental human right in a way many modern cities still struggle to achieve. The Roman state was making a powerful statement that water, this most essential resource, was a public good, an amenity that benefited the entire body politic. This ancient philosophy that a government has a responsibility to provide clean water for the health and welfare of its people is the direct ancestor of our modern municipal water utilities and public health departments. The concept that water should be accessible to all for basic needs and used to create public spaces for recreation and community flows directly from those Roman foundations. Every public swimming pool, every community fountain in a town square, and every tap that delivers safe drinking water carries the echo of that ancient civic ideal. It established a principle that would ripple across the centuries, a belief that the ultimate purpose of an engineered system is not just to control nature, but to elevate human life. These 22 ancient systems are far more than a catalogue of forgotten marvels. They are the scattered pieces of a single, enduring blueprint for human survival. From the Qanats' gravity-fed tunnels to the Stepwell's community heart, from Rome's managed pressure to the Fagara's shared governance, a powerful pattern emerges. Each civilization, in its own time and place, rediscovered the same fundamental truths. Water must be moved by gravity, not fought against. It must be stored on a massive scale to create resilience against scarcity. Its waste must be systematically removed to protect public health. And most importantly, its management must serve the community, binding people together with a common purpose. These are not outdated ideas. They are the bedrock principles upon which every modern, functioning city on Earth is built. The whispers from these ancient engineers carry an urgent message for our own time. In an era of complex technology and looming environmental crises, their greatest lesson is one of profound simplicity. The most sustainable solutions are not always the most technologically advanced. They are those that work in harmony with the unchangeable forces of nature, that are built with a foresight spanning generations, and that recognize a vital resource as a shared trust, not a private possession. Our future may well depend on our ability to listen. The flow of history and the flow of water are inextricably linked, a single current carrying the ingenuity of our ancestors into the pipes beneath our feet. These 22 systems are far more than historical curiosities. They are a powerful testament to a shared human genius, a vital inheritance handed down through stone and soil. They stand as a quiet challenge to our modern assumptions, asking us to look back with reverence as we plan our way forward. Our path to resilient, sustainable cities may not lie in inventing entirely new solutions, but in thoughtfully blending this ancient wisdom with our powerful modern technology. It is a conversation across time between the Qanat digger and the civil engineer, between the Zanjero and the water district manager. So the next time you effortlessly turn on a tap or watch rainwater vanish into a storm drain, pause for a moment. Remember the millennia of innovation, the countless hands and minds that shaped the simple miracle you are witnessing. It is a legacy of clarity and purpose, one we must now carry forward with equal parts wisdom and responsibility. If this journey through hydraulic history has resonated with you, consider subscribing for more deep dives into the forgotten marvels of our past. We would love to hear which of these ancient water systems left you most in awe. Was it the inverted temples of the Stepwells or the subterranean rivers of the Qanat? Share your thoughts in the comments below.